Hello and welcome back to Building on a Budget Models. I'm Thomas and this is the third part of the DeLorean Time Machine in 1/24th scale by Aoshima. The interior was painted in stone grey from Revell, and then I used these light grey felt pieces to add some carpet to the interior. The seats were painted in dark grey, also from Revell, and I also added details in black such as the handbrake here. When I was fine with the position of the felt, I then glued the seats into place. The dashboard was painted all in silver, and then I went over the kind of plastic parts in the same stone grey as the interior. Tried to be as careful as I could around some of these race details. There's lots of moulded wires and things like that on here which you could easily replace. I later went over some of them with some real wires. I used a very thin zero brush to add some black to some of these wires. Pretty happy with that. There's a single decal here that goes on the instrument dials. Now I used these wires from an old charging cable which no longer works, stretched them thin out like this to get them as straight as possible. Then I cut out some very thin pieces of plumber's aluminium tape to use as sort of cable ties. Folded them underneath and then wrapped them round in sort of like equally distant places. Using the tape here is useful because it means that you can get them stretched out and as straight as possible whilst fixing these two wires together. Then put the lower part of the dashboard into place. This was also painted in stone grey and silver in places, and then wrapped that green and red wire around the back. I later added a little super glue to hold this wire in place. Then added some detail to the moulded wires by using my thin red Posca paint pen. Three decals here go on this nuclear charge section. The outside of the dial should actually be black, so I went and did this afterwards. Probably be better to do it before. There are three switches, two red and one green, that go in the centre of the steering wheel, which had already been done in semi-gloss black. This control switch for the time circuits that goes just behind the gear stick is in clear, and then the ends need to be in grey, and then there's also this base here which needs to be coloured in. I used the red Posca paint pen to do these labels on the side. Then the time circuits go on top like so. There's then decals for all three of the films, not that you can see these times and dates on there unless you look at it very closely, but I used the film accurate 2015 dates from the second film. If you have one of the older versions of this kit, there might be a little bit of carrier film on the outside of these decals which needs to be removed. This one has more up-to-date decals than the kits that I used previously. It's important to get these as straight as possible. I also use some UMP decal solution here. The little keypad at the bottom is done in green with the buttons in white. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I also used some additional wires stretched out in the same way next to the seats. I think that adds a nice effect. And finally, there should be this box at the back of the time circuit controls, which wasn't featured in the kit. So I mocked one up using a little bit of 0.5mm styrene sheet, coloured it in gold, and then there's a little bit of mesh that goes on the top. I used some spare mesh that I had left over from the Tamiya Supra that I built earlier in the year. This was glued into place with a little bit of super glue on the top of both sides. Had to be very delicate to get it in the right position. I'm pretty happy with that. So then the alarm clock from the end of the first film, that needs to be gold and then glued on top of the stereo system. This section at the back of the interior houses the Flux capacitor, which isn't exactly film accurate, but I think it's fine. That was glued into place once it was painted. And this control section here, which goes behind the driver's seat, I painted it silver and then used some coloured Sharpies to show those sort of power fluctuation bars that you see in the film. Bit of poly cement held this into place, which is very important as this would need to be drilled through to house the fibre optics. These needed 1mm holes to fill in the fibre optics in the centre and then the edge of the kind of Y-shaped flux capacitor. That's why it's very important to make sure that the box is glued very securely onto the back section here. I drilled through from both sides. Be very careful when doing this, as you can so easily stab yourself with these pin vise drills. I'll show you the rest of the wiring in the next part. Now then, I decided to add some props, so I found some high quality photos on the internet of things like the Sports Almanac book and also the hoverboard. I wanted to get one which had the back cover as well, so I had a look to find one which was in good quality and also didn't have any watermarks. Copied that and then resized it before gluing it to a piece of 0.5mm styrene sheet. Did the same with the hoverboard here, and then just stuck those into place with a little bit of white tack. I think those make really nice props. Finally, I printed out a Save the Clock Tower sheet from the first film and simply blue tacked that into place on the dashboard. And here are some pictures of the final thing. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I've also drilled the holes in the footwells for the interior lights, so hopefully these details will be picked out really nicely in the final build. Thanks a lot for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon.